Awesome. So you are here back at your alma mater. You're doing a very cool concert with one of your own compositions. It's called The Cathedral. Let's just start big picture. Talk to me about this piece.
Yeah, well, we're celebrating 100 years of this amazing space, which is the Kodak Hall at the George Eastman Theater. It's a joint concert that's never happened between the Rochester Philharmonic and the Eastman Philharmonia. And I was commissioned to write a piece for these groups, and I think the people that commissioned me thought I'd put them all up on that stage. But I got this idea to do it antiphonally. So the Rochester Philharmonic will be on the main stage, and the students, the Eastman Philharmonia, will be in these boxes on each side and up in the balcony. So the idea is the audience will be surrounded by the music. I knew I wanted to become a composer when I was playing trumpet in the Oakland Youth Symphony hearing Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, and I was sitting in the middle of the orchestra, and I still feel like that is the most amazing place to hear orchestral music, is being inside it. So I hope that the audience gets this very immersive experience from listening to the piece.
So talk to me about the actual, piece itself, because it's also commemorating 100 years of the space. What kind of emotions or thoughts are you looking to provoke with this?
Well, I was thinking a lot about traditions, and the fact that this is the idea between the master and the student was a metaphor that I think really represents this building, because this is a world-class music school right on this other wall, which I was a student at, and right on the other wall is a professional orchestra. So the idea, and of course all the teachers at the Eastman School are virtuosos, so the idea of the ways in which we teach music, it is this sort of very oral tradition, and it's very intimate. And so the piece is in a way a conversation. It's the way in which musical phrases are passed between each other as a language.
And then one thing I always like asking musicians and composers of your caliber is when you work with professional musicians all the time. They're professionals, they know what they're doing, they're amazing at their craft. What's it like coming back and then working with students who maybe are figuring out some of the things that the professionals already? What's that experience like for you working with students again?
Yeah, I love it. And I love the energy and the passion of young musicians, especially of the Eastman caliber. The fun thing about doing this piece is I actually gave the students the much harder part, because I'm on the podium conducting, but they are playing and they're watching a conductor who might be 100 feet away from them. So it was a real good chance for them to have a real world experience performing, where they sort of have to figure it out and to come together as a section and do it. So it's incredibly joyful and fun to watch them respond and learn and have an experience that hopefully they'll remember for a long time.
Short version, in your words, what is it? And it's been in place for 6 years now, and reflect on its success for me.
Yeah, well, film music has always been sort of an unofficial part of the history of this school. My mentor, Rayburn Wright, had a class in film music, but by the time my wife and I started becoming involved as alumni and talking to the young students, it became very obvious there was a desire on so many young musicians to both perform and to learn how to compose for the screen. So, we founded and endowed the seed money for this institute to be created, and it's a 2-year master's program led by a wonderful Emmy-winning composer from Los Angeles, Mark Waters. And it's been really wonderful. We've had some amazing students who've gone on to become assistants for, like Ramin, who does the music for Game of Thrones and many other things. And I love teaching. I love showing the craft, and what better place to do it than here at the school that was founded by the man who invented, pretty much modern photography. So this was originally it was a silent movie house. That's the first big events that happened here. So when you think about modern culture, film music really is let me back up and remembered something I was going to say before the lights went out. I really feel like film music is really an important part of the modern symphonic literature. Any musician that gets a job in any orchestra now is going to be playing the music with John Williams and many other people in concert. So we're really at an exciting time, I think, in the evolution of the canon of music, where film music is really becoming not only on screen, but performed in a concert hall as well.
Perfect. I want to backtrack a little bit, and this wasn't on my list, but you talked about Ray Wright.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time here at Eastman, and his name is so revered, and he was really the first to do this sort of multimedia composition.
Yeah.
But for you, when working with him, there must have been this kind of moment where you realized, this is cool, I want to do film composition. Did you have that with him?
Several.
And Ray was also the conductor at Radio City Music Hall, and I remember we used to do studio orchestra sessions in the room that's now named after him. And it was sort of in the round, so he was throwing cues in front and behind him, and I kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I get my moment of Ray Wright when I conduct the Cathedral on Saturday because I'm conducting in the round. It's fascinating, but Ray was really ahead of his time. He came from Radio City Music Hall, he'd written for film, and he had a very expansive attitude towards music. He wasn't ashamed of music that might be in a commercial venue as being good music and having the potential to become excellent, and that was really inspiring to me. He was so embracing of technology. He was always curious, and at the time, now it seems very primitive, but whatever was the latest, greatest was what Ray wanted to tell us about.
Perfect. Obviously, I just want to circle back to this. Went to school here, you moved from California to Rochester, so you do the bi-coastal thing just a little bit. You hear semi-frequently, how does it feel every time you come back to your alma mater to be able to teach and give back?
I love it. In fact, it was kind of a COVID thing, but my wife and I now live in Manhattan, so part of the reason for that move was being closer to the school because I was just named a distinguished visiting artist, which I'm very honored to be. But officially or unofficially, I didn't want to just have my name on the Institute. I wanted to, while I'm around, be a real partner of these students and help them, mentor them and teach them as they go through the program.
Perfect. I do have one more little musical question, then I like to end all my interviews with creative people with sort of these big picture things. So this is more.
This is a great interview, by the way. I love these questions. This is fantastic.
Yeah. I'm flattered to hear that. Yeah. One thing I am always interested in is when someone who is an instrumentalist then goes into composition. Right. So obviously, I love kind of answering this question. Trumpet is a very declarative and melodic instrument. How do you think that has informed your film score composition?
You can hear my trumpet in the House of Cards theme, for example, and I love using it when the case is made for it, but I'm really excited because actually this year I have a film coming out called Raymond and Ray, starring Ethan Hawke, that's going to be on Apple TV in October. Ethan Hawke's character is a jazz trumpet player, so even before they shot the movie, I was able to create some themes that he plays on screen. And for me, that felt like the full circle, the trumpet player, because I was a trumpet major when I came to Eastman. I felt like the trumpet player and the film composer finally got to meet each other in my life in a strange and beautiful way.
Is he like miming what you're playing?
Yeah, he is, and he's done this before. He did such a great job. He also played Chet Baker in a movie called Born to be Blue, right. I think is the name of it, a few years ago. And I was on set when he filmed his part, and he did a great job. It's really a wonderful little movie.
I just have to ask, that must have been a trip, seeing someone miming something
and
you played.
Ethan Hawke, I told him, I said I like the piece better when you play it than when I do, because it's Ethan Hawke, and he's such a good presence. But it's also a very personal movie. It's about Rodrigo Garcia, who wrote and directed. His father, he lost his father a few years ago, and it's about loss and grieving and saying goodbye to a parent. And so I like the emotional tone of it. Trumpet is a very declarative instrument, but it can also be a very beautiful lyrical instrument, and think about somebody like Chet Baker or Miles Davis, I think as I got older, I sort of gravitated more to those players just because of the way in which the emotion, I think, in the instrument it's a lot like the voice. I think a lot about singing. My wife's a wonderful singer, and I love writing for singers. So I think the best trumpet players have that sense of vocal quality when they play.
I do have to throw in a designated question about House of Cards. This is, this has been, forgive the joke, your calling card for a while now.
Yeah.
Was this a situation where you're writing this, obviously, the actor's been through some stuff, which we don't have to get into, but obviously in that moment, it really took the world by storm. When you were writing this or when you were seeing it, first of all, did you have a sense that this was going to be it? And this is still carrying with you. This is a project that people still talk about.
No, it's probably it's definitely the music I'm sorry, let me start again. It's definitely the music I'm most well known for around the world to this day. And the funny part of it is, listen, it was a great cast, great director, David Fincher, but nobody knew that House of Cards would become the sensation that it was, because really this was an experiment. This was the first time, for example, Netflix, who was very young company at the time. We put the whole season out at one time. That seemed crazy. But it really ushered in this amazing era of storytelling and almost this operatic scale in which the writers could write a whole season in the way that they knew that their viewers would really watch all the episodes and track it like a really long movie or something.
Beautiful. I do want to get to these 3 big picture questions, so let's do it. You're originally from California, moved here for school. What about Rochester and the Eastman School of Music, really looking back on it, informed you as a composer and musician?
Well, so many people have told me, and I think it's really true, I think there's so much history here between Howard Hanson and Chuck Mangione and Ray Wright and all the great teachers that have been in there, and all the great colleagues of mine like Michael Torkey and Kevin Putz, who've gone on to win Pulitzers. There is a bit of an Eastman aesthetic and an Eastman sound, and I think this place, this city, has a very strong connection to what I would call the roots of American identity. And that's been in a lot of my work, from House of Cards to Pollock to many other films I've done. And I think there's something very quintessential and proud, and not in a haughty way, but in a very wonderful way about, no, we're Americans. We're doing this differently. We love European music, but the whole Eastman School is about the future. It's about taking these traditions and moving them forward into the past, and also from a place of being Americans.
We've talked about an upcoming project that's coming out in October, I believe, on Apple TV.
Yeah.
And then, but I always like to ask this too. What do you think? What is your next big accomplishment? What's the next feather in your cap besides getting through this show? But what's kind of the next thing that's on the horizon?
Well, like the piece on Saturday night, I really love writing concert music, and I love writing for the voice. But I think the next sort of big mountain on my horizon is probably I really want to write an opera. So that's early stage development of ideas, and so I think it's very close to film music in the sense that it's musical, dramatic storytelling. So that's really a goal I have in the next several years.
Any advice for aspiring composers?
Well, yeah, obviously study not only music, but also study film, because film is a form of literature. So being a good film composer, you'd have to learn how to write music. You need to study all the things you need to learn, but you also need to study the language of film and study the language of film music and really pick apart, and that's what we were just doing in the class with Mark, pick apart what makes a scene work and how does a cue take you through each step of the way.